Alright, so there's more movement now with this Dillian Whyte situation. Let's say movement. There's another story which is emerging. So Dillian Whyte today has gone on to TalkSport. Now bear this in mind, right? Last week, he went on TalkSport towards the back end of the week, said, he wasn't happy with the initial contract he was given, went to Eddie Hearn with some demands that, he felt that were feasible, which they weren't. Eddie Hearn was never going to agree to them, moving the date and potentially wanting to do it in the stadium, stuff like that. So he said that he got another, conversation went further, he then accepted. Well, he's now declared that he is not happy with certain aspects of the contract for the Anthony Joshua fight proposed on August 12th. Apparently, he doesn't want a rematch clause because if he wins, he wants to be the one to take Joshua's place and fight Deontay Wilder in December in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, the Deontay Wilder fight is a fight Dillian Whyte's been calling for, I should say, for many, many years. And for whatever reason, Team Wilder just seemed unwilling to take that fight. I don't really know why, because as I've said several times, I've always felt Wilder easy enough job of it, really, I think, with Dillian Whyte. But anyhow, so the main point of contention, it seems, is the rematch clause. And, I see a lot of people, some are saying, to be expected, others are saying, why is Eddie Hearn doing this? It's become part and parcel almost now of Matchroom to put rematch clause. And, people are saying, well, Joshua has no title, so why is there a rematch? And that's a very, very good argument, a very good point. I've heard interviews from fighters who fought prospects like Dalton Smith, in 8-rounders, saying there's a rematch clause in place. I don't know why that is. I don't know why you'd need to consistently put rematch clause in places for, fights that are lower down the card. It really is a bit of a head scratcher for me. But Dillian Whyte, obviously, if he goes in there with Anthony Joshua, obviously he feels confident that he can beat him. Okay, as he should. He's hardly going to go in there and think, he's going to manhandle me. But he wants to be the one to sail off into the sunset, move on. Obviously, there's no title on the line, but he wanted to go straight into a fight with Deontay Wilder. And I just don't see that being feasible. I mean, I think that the Saudis are the ones who would have the major say in that, in terms of if he did beat Joshua and there was no rematch clause, would he go straight in and fight Deontay Wilder? I think the Saudis would have to say in that, whether they think that's financially feasible. Obviously, I think Wilder Joshua, we all know that's a bigger fight commercially. There's no ifs or buts than Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder. So he's not happy with the rematch. Now, I heard other people say it was only a one-way rematch. I'm hearing different things, but Dillian Whyte said it from the horse's mouth there. So originally what I was hearing was that it was a one-way rematch clause for Joshua. So if Joshua loses, he gets a rematch, but not if Dillian Whyte loses. I mean, that's very unrealistic. They're not going to run it back for Dillian Whyte if he loses. But apparently no. Apparently it's just the fact that he doesn't want a rematch clause at all. I think that the rematch clause is being way overused in boxing. It really, really is. It's being way overused. People would say, Eddie Hearn's the worst, and he's certainly up there. But it is becoming almost part and parcel now, you see, with promoters. I mean, Warren's brought out the rematch clause. Shalom has talked about them in the past, and he's doing, obviously, with Eubank versus Smith. That was a non-title fight. Obviously, we don't know where necessarily we stand with that fight because of, obviously, the Conor Benn situation. But it's rematches left, right, and centre. And I think that what the promoters are doing, yes, it's a contingency plan. It means that if my fighter loses, we have a chance to, run it back and hopefully get the win back. I get that. But I think a lot of the time now, what promoters are looking at is they're looking at the big fights of the past. They're looking at the Gatti Wards. They're looking at the Barrera Moraleses, and they're saying, the Pacquiao Marquez, and it's like they had trilogies and 4 pieces. And I think that's what a lot of these promoters are trying to do. They're trying to get their trilogies. They're trying to get, big rivalries. And I think that, sometimes with rivalries and big fights, they come about just kind of out of the blue almost. They're not out of the blue necessarily, but like the fights just catch fire. You think it might be a good fight, it's a great fight, it catches fire, and you just want to see it again. With some of these fights that get rematch clauses, I'm kind of like, yeah, I've seen it, been there, seen it, done it, move on. With regards rematches for mandatories and voluntaries, rematches for voluntaries has always been part and parcel. It's always the way. You're giving the opponent a crack. He's not earned it necessarily, but he's getting a crack. So I understand that 100%. But Klitschko was the guy who really started the whole rematches for mandatories, which I don't particularly like, as many of you will know. I think it's, if you've earned that right, it should be your right. You shouldn't have to go and say, if I beat you, you have to run it back. I think it should be a case of, I've earned my right, I've taken my right, I've got my title, See you later. You go do the same. You want to crack? You have to earn it. For non-title fights again, I don't see the point in that. And for this fight right here, I really don't see the point in having a rematch because I really don't. I'm fairly confident Joshua wins. I just don't see it. And with Dillian Whyte saying that, Dillian Whyte is obviously planning and saying, I want this. Even if Dillian Whyte does win, I can't see him getting that Saudi fight. I can't see him getting that fight with Wilder in Saudi. Not that Wilder wouldn't want it, but I just think the Saudis would be like, our plan was Joshua Wilder, that's our plan. Would we be willing to fork out said amount of money for Dillian Whyte? Probably not, but you never know. So that's the situation here. Look, I wouldn't be shocked if Eddie Hearn just says, right, see ya, bring in Kabayel. Do I think that that's a better fight? No, not really. I think that Kabayel, I think it's going to be an awful fight, really, truth be told, if they do fight Kabayel. I will go into this fight not expecting a good fight. So, if we get a good fight, happy days, it's exceeded my expectations. But if we get Joshua Kabayel, I say to people listening, do not expect fireworks, because I seriously doubt we're going to get that. I think we're going to get a very, very dull, negative fight. Kabayel being the negative one. So that's just got to be something to be wary of. But this is the movement now at the time being with Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think Dillian Whyte is being unreasonable? He should just agree to the rematch clause? Do you think that the rematch clause is being overused now throughout boxing, really? When you hear about prospects on the come up having rematch clause in place, it's like, what? Really? And do you think it should be just resigned to, maybe... If it's the big fights are normally title fights, but if there's a really, really, really big, massive, like let's just say once in a lifetime kind of world title or non-title fight, like say Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, I'd say that was just on that level, but had no title. Maybe a rematch clause for that if it's a good enough fight. But for voluntaries, yes, but all other people, do you think there should be or shouldn't be? Let me know in the comments. I'll leave it there. Smash the like button if you could. Obviously hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave you with that.